Emrakul the Aeon's Torn is a perfect example on why a card is on the ban list in EDH. She has a stack of abilities that when all put together really go against the philosophy and spirit of the game. Now when analyzing if a card should be banned in Commander, it has to reach a certain criteria. So I broke it down into 3 major points, but before we go over that, let's look at what Emrakul does first. Emrakul the Aeon's Torn is 15 for a 15/15 legendary creature Eldrazi. This spell can't be countered. When you cast this spell, take an extra turn after this one. Flying, protection from spells that are 1 or more colors. Annihilator 6. For those of you that don't know, Annihilator is when this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices that many permanents. In this case, it would be 6. When Emrakul the Aeon's Torn is put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library. Eldrazi are fun and fair. You control enchanted player. There's literally no way to exploit powerful cards with big mana cost, and getting to 13 mana is impossible! Very balanced! No, but seriously, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn just has so many powerful abilities, and you can easily exploit it, because it's all bundled up into one convenient nightmarish package. Now when asking ourselves if a card should be banned or not, there are 3 major points to go over, and I'm going to be taking Emrakul through each of these points. Keep in mind that even if a card hits all 3 of these points, that doesn't necessarily mean that the card should be auto-banned, just that the conversation can be pushed forward to see if the card truly is a problem for the format or not. With that out of the way, let's get into this. Number 1. Is this card hard to interact with? Number 2. Is this card extremely oppressive? And number 3, is this card consistently too powerful? Now let's run Emrakul through this. Starting from the top, is this card hard to interact with? Well, first, Emrakul says this spell can't be countered, so sorry blue players. Next, when you cast this spell, take an extra turn after this one. So if you have sorcery speed removal, you have to wait to use it, meaning your opponent gets at least 1 attack off with this. And God forbid someone gives this thing haste. That means 2 attacks will be set off with this. You may not even have the mana to interact with Emrakul later. Moving right along, Emrakul also has flying, protection from spells that are 1 or more colors, and Annihilator of 6. Because Emrakul has protection from colored spells, she can't be hit by any spot removal. So when Emrakul comes out, she is here to stay. Really, the only ways you can interact with Emrakul are edict effects and board wipes. But the thing is, edict effects may not even work because if the Emrakul player has another creature, they just sack that instead of Emrakul. And board wipes you have to wait to use because they're sorcery speed, meaning the Emrakul player is going to get at least 1 attack off with Emrakul. Not to mention, there are many popular board wipes that wouldn't even hit Emrakul. So yes, Emrakul is really hard to interact with. Moving on to point number 2, is this card extremely oppressive? It is pretty crazy to me that just for attacking, you're making someone sacrifice 6 things. Not only is that minimizing your opponent's resources for what they can use to actually interact with you and Emrakul, but you're just taking away their ability to play the game in general, and that's going directly against the spirit of EDH. Now some of you may be wondering, if that's the case, how come we don't ban the other Eldrazi that have Annihilator? And for 2 big reasons. Number 1, the other Eldrazi don't have an Annihilator count as high as Emrakul's. And number 2, you can actually fucking interact with the other Eldrazi. Plus, they're not giving you an extra turn when you cast them. I hate it when I see people say like, oh, Emrakul's not that bad, she only has an Annihilator of 6 and it's not like I'm winning out of nowhere or killing my opponent in 1 hit. Which, yeah, you're not killing your opponent in 1 hit. What you're doing is you're breaking their arms and legs and gagging them and stopping them from having any kind of meaningful interaction. Because making someone sacrifice 6 things is crippling. And if you have any way to abuse Emrakul's ability, like copying Emrakul herself, maybe just copying the Annihilator ability, you're pretty much just turning your opponents into quadriplegics and vegetables. So yeah, Emrakul is really oppressive. Moving on to point number 3, is this card consistently too powerful? When asking ourselves if a card is consistently too powerful, we have to see if this card requires a strategic build around in order to be good, or if it requires specific cards in order to really be broken. This is not the case for Emrakul. Emrakul's decks don't require any kind of complex or creative strategy. They're all doing the same thing. They're either cheating her out or ramping into her. We could even look at other formats that run Emrakul as evidence for this, like Modern or Legacy. And Modern and Legacy have a more competitive design philosophy compared to that of Commander. We can even look at these sets specifically designed with these formats in mind as a perfect illustration of this. Just taking a glance at any of the Modern Horizon sets, there is a ton of stuff with aggressive mana cost and really powerful effects. And Emrakul's in this awkward place where she's too oppressive and good for casual Commander, but she's too slow for CEDH, so none of these playgroups really want her. On average, at any point while you're playing a game of Commander and Emrakul were to come out, she would be a huge threat. If she was cheated out early game, massive threat. If she came out mid game, massive threat. Even if she came out late in the game, Emrakul would still be a huge threat to you and the game itself. She is consistently very powerful because of all those powerful abilities all wrapped up in one body. And the thing is, I see people try to downplay Emrakul by saying, oh, she's 15 mana. That's totally fair for all of those powerful effects. Let me tell you that 15 mana pretty much means nothing. There is so much ramp and fast mana in the game that you will never wait 15 turns in order to play Emrakul. Not to mention, if she was unbanned and you were able to throw her into the 99 of other decks, she would be cheated out and copied left and right. It would be a nightmare. So yes, Emrakul does check off every one of these major points, and I do believe she goes against the philosophy and spirit of EDH. Personally, I believe that EDH is in a healthier state without Emrakul, and I for one am glad that she is locked away in the ban list. Good riddance.